Welcome, everybody, to our annual meeting. I'm glad you all are here. We have a number of things to do today, but we've got some fun things in here. We've got a wonderful speaker, and we've got a little video for us to see too. So glad you're here. Ali Rashid, our present secretary, is not able to be here with us today. She had a professional commitment, but we are recording so that she can get these minutes together for us later, which we really appreciate. I hope everybody's had a chance to look at the March minutes, the board minutes. Does anybody have any questions about those or corrections? I think Jen and I both went over them, but we could have failed to see some things.
I move that we approve them as submitted.
Great.
And I second the motion.
That's Mo seconding. Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed? All right, let's go on to the treasurer's report. I see that's up on the screen. I hope you all can see it. This is the proposed budget. Barb, do you want to talk about any changes that we should be aware of?
Just the fact that last year was such a strange year. We can't count on what we did last year to be predictive of this year at all. So we kind of went back to the year before and tried to base it on what we thought we were going to do based on the year before last. We had a committee headed by T. Bergman, and we went through this together and settled on these numbers. I don't know if anybody has any questions about it. It's been a little bit since I went through this in detail. So
just to orient everyone, it says it right at the very top, but the first thing is budgeted for last year. Column 2 is what we actually spent, and then the third column is what we proposed for this coming year. So I'm going to scroll up so you can see all the expenses proposed for this year.
May I make a suggestion? Would it be possible to have an extra column in from budgeted actual and difference so I don't have to do the math in my head?
Probably not immediately.
No, but going forward.
That's a good idea, though. Yeah. I know one additional thing is book club, $500, which we hadn't had in there before. That was because Mo Murphy had what we thought was a great idea to be able to purchase the books that we read, just one copy of each, so that we have this for our league library, which hopefully will be up and running post-pandemic or better pandemic situation.
And I think that was actually Barb's idea. So that was her good idea.
Good. Well, that was Barb. And then we have money for the national delegates, $1,000. We didn't need that for this past year because it was virtual. But those are the members that represent us at the national convention.
I think the other big expense that's added is the insurance. So, you know, this year we talked about having directors and officers insurance, which we have not had in the past. So that's going to be an ongoing expense. And that's around $750. So, you know, I think that this year was, you know, we had artificially low expenses because we didn't have anything in person. It was all virtual, but we did have that extra expense, and that's going to carry over. And so that's why there's a discrepancy of about like $1,300 between last year's and the proposed for this coming year.
Yeah. Anything else we can?
I think you hit all the things that we spent some time discussing.
Yeah, do people have questions about this? Are we ready to make a motion?
I'll move on behalf of our budget committee that we accept the proposed budget, realizing that if we don't stick exactly to it, it's okay.
Is there a second?
Second, Lynn.
Lynn, Flynn. Thank you, Lynn. Any other questions or discussion? If not, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor of this proposed budget, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Let's go on to the bylaws. And Cindy's going to tell us about these.
We had a good committee. We met several times. And again, like Barb, we did this about 2 months ago, so my brain is a little fuzzy on the key things that we did. I think the biggest thing we did is we simplified the types of membership. Can you scroll up, Jen?
Up
Or
down?
down. We no longer have associate members. We're just members. And so we removed that. Go ahead and keep scrolling, Jen, if you would. And then we have adopted a nonpartisan and conflict of interest policy. And that we decided we didn't want to include in the bylaws per se, but we would reference them because they might change or be adjusted. And what we'd like to have happen is for board members each year to read them as a reminder that we are nonpartisan and that we need to avoid any sense of conflict of interest and sign them and submit them to the president. Any questions about that? Okay. We decided we should commit to at least 6 regular meetings of the board annually. Not necessarily thinking we need to meet every month. So we changed that to give us a little flexibility. On the officers, we made a pretty big shift, but I think it's important and it's kind of following what we've been practicing. The president will be elected in even years for 2-year terms. They had been elected for 1-year terms. And we would like to suggest that they may serve up to 2 consecutive terms. So somebody could be a president for 4 years, step down to another position, and then 2 years later come back and be elected again. Now, in the past, we've had difficulty finding presidents, and so people willing to take that job on. So we felt like we needed some flexibility to allow us to have people serve a little bit longer, but at least have a break in between 4-year terms. Now, our membership, of course, is growing, and I think that's not going to be a problem in the future. And then the second vice president and treasurer would be elected also in even numbered years. Any thoughts or questions about that? Just kind of a basic, the vice presidents in the event of the absence of the president, the longest term, whoops, excuse me. The longest serving vice president would step in and assume the powers of the president because we have a first and second vice president, should that be needed. And then we decided that one of the vice presidents should be responsible for the annual review of bylaws. That had not been designated to anybody. So that gives us somebody who's responsible to check them each year. And then We don't do audits of our books because of an official audit would take somebody who was especially trained and probably cost something. And so we decided to change the word audit to review. And we do have a committee of 2 or 3 people, and they look at the books each year so that we're sure that we have some assurance that nobody's running off with our money. And then that needs to be done annually. And then the budget, yeah, that's just a wording change. Okay, Jen. The membership meetings, those are what we used to call our general meetings. We decided we should commit to at least 4 a year. Our practice this year has been almost every month. The program committee has done a wonderful job of finding speakers and programs, but we decided a couple of years ago, we kind of lapsed on doing those general meetings. And so we decided to make it 4, but we think that's appropriate, at least quarterly. Then further on down, I don't think that's significant. Keep going. Program recommendations. Each year we have a planning committee meeting and adopt programs. This just cleans up some of the requirements for that. And the Article 10 just puts us in compliance with national's rules about representation at convention. And the state convention, actually, they're going to just turn into an annual meeting after the meeting this year. That's a recommendation, but we do need to be sure we have delegates appointed before each of those meetings. And instead of calling for state, oh, okay, keep going. And I think that's it. And I really appreciate the bylaws committee really dug into these, and we spent a couple of good meetings, lengthy meetings, discussing them at length. So I move on behalf of the bylaws committee that we approve these as presented, if there are no questions.
I did have a question about the general meeting, the 4 general meetings. Would that include the programs that we've had? Is that considered?
Yes. Yes, that's considered a general meeting. Usually our general meetings are always open to the public, and they've been subjects are of interest to us, but also to the general public.
Right.
And that's just another way to get the word out and to share the good information that we're collecting for ourselves with the general public.
Thanks, Cindy. Is there a second? I'm sorry if someone seconded the motion. Is there a
I'll
second?
I'll second
would-
it.
Okay.
This is
That's
Lynn.
Lynn. Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn.
Okay. Any other questions for Cindy? All right, well, ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the bylaws are as is. Great job, everybody. Thank you, Cindy, for leading that and for the committee. Okay, yeah. Let's go on to the nominations. Cindy, are you going to talk about this?
Yes. At this point, with the new bylaws and the 2-year terms, Mary and Jen have agreed to serve 2 more years as co-presidents. Sharon Stewart has agreed to serve a 2-year term as one of the vice presidents, and the other vice presidency is vacant at this time. We can fill that by appointment through the board at any time. So if we identify somebody who would like to do that, we'll do that. Lynn Flynn has graciously agreed to serve as secretary. And Lynn, thank you for doing that. Lynn was secretary several years ago and did a fabulous job. Ollie who has served this year, has had added work responsibilities added to her plate, and she just felt like she couldn't serve another term. Then that's the officers. Then the directors are all one-year terms. And Observer Corps, Cindy Ward has agreed to take that on. She's a new member this year. The voter is Marilyn Macara. Jen, help me with pronunciation.
That's right, I think.
Has agreed
Macara.
to serve as voter. And basically what she'll be doing is collecting the information. So when she asks for information, and we need everybody to get back to her as quickly as possible. And so we're really grateful for that. Tip Moody, who is on today, has agreed to deal with public relations, and we really appreciate that. Tip has experience in public relations and has already done some really nice work getting Jen on radio and getting Ed Monahan on the radio on the civil rights issue for persons with felony convictions. So he's more aggressive than we've been before, and we're going to appreciate that, Tip. Webmaster is Catherine Harbor. Mark Scar is going to do the We Vote of Voter Services. Maureen Murphy, who is on today, thank you, Maureen, is going to take on membership, and that's going to turn out to be a committee of a couple of people because it's a pretty big job. And then Sharon Stewart will continue with Vote 411. Megan George has been working on the essay contest, and she will continue. And Maureen Murphy, by the way, Maureen likes to be called Mo. Mo is going to also continue with the book club. Now, the nominating committee, I agreed to chair that. That has to be a board member. And then we need 2 off-board people to serve on the nominating committee. And we don't have any volunteers at this point. If anybody would like to join us, oh, I take it back. Diana Cluett said she would continue. But if anybody else, and she would be off board, if anyone else would like to volunteer, we'd appreciate your name. If not, we'll be searching for somebody.
Okay. Are there questions about the nominations?
Or any other nominations. We can take nominations from the floor.
Any new
I just wanted to clarify about the president's term. Since we're, I thought that in the bylaws it said we were elected in even years. But maybe I'm not.
Oh, you may be right. You want to go back and look at those? If that's the case, I'm sorry, if that's the case, then we would elect them to complete a 2-year term.
Of course, I already closed that out. I'll have to find it again. Sorry.
Jen, you're correct. That is what the bylaws read.
Okay, so what we
Even
need to
number of
do, let me make the correction then. Mary and Jen would serve the final year of a 2-year term, and then they would be up for re-election next year in 2022. Good catch, Jen. And the same with Sharon Stewart.
Right. She's just filling one of those vice presidents.
Right.
Good.
Right.
Okay, great.
And then Lynn, that would be the same for you. Because you would need to be elected for a 2-year term next year. So if you're agreeing to only to serve 1 year right now.
That's correct. I'm agreeing to only serve 1 year.
Well, that's why I caught it. I was like, did I already agree to another 2 years? Like,
I'm glad you said that because I was confused too, but I was like,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
it's okay. All right. Do we have that all straightened out? And are there any other nominations? All right. So we have a motion. Sorry, I just blanked on what I was. Cindy, do we have a motion?
I will move that we adopt this slate of officers by acclamation as corrected in terms of the term, the 1 and 2 year terms.
Okay,
And
And I
also the
second.
addition of Diana Cluett, right?
I'm sorry, and the addition of Diana Cluett on the nominating committee.
great.
Okay, I second the motion.
That was Mo. Thank you, Mo.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in
Yes.
favor, I guess by acclamation?
Aye.
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 Anybody that opposes will have to take one of these
Positions.
No, I'm
That's
teasing,
right.
but anyway, all right. Wow, that was wonderful timing. I know I saw that Lisa Higgins Hort is with us. So Lisa, are you there and ready for me to present you? Is
You're
she?
muted,
You're on mute.
Lisa.
Okay.
All
I don't
right.
know what's wrong with this thing today. It was all set up, and then all of a sudden, I can't speak, I can't see, I can't hear.
Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. I'm really glad you're here today. So I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Lisa Higgins Hort, who has graciously agreed to talk with us today about the Mayor's Commission on Racial Justice and Equality. Lisa is currently serving in a dual role with the University of Kentucky in the city of Lexington. At the University of Kentucky, she is the Assistant Vice President for Community Engagement and serves as the Strategic Implementation Coordinator for the city of Lexington. In her duties with the city, she is responsible for creating a plan for the recommendations set for the Racial Justice and Equality Commission. In her role at UK, she develops, implements, and assesses significant community-based projects that create robust partnerships between the university community, which is the faculty, students, and staff, and local, state, and regional constituencies. The responsibilities within the University Engagement Department include the AmeriCorps VISTA program and the Office of Lifelong Learning. And I am a member of the Office of Lifelong Learning, and I love it. It's a wonderful program. Lisa is a former councilwoman for District 6 in Lexington, Kentucky. She is also active in many state and local activities. Currently, Lisa serves on the Bank of the Bluegrass and Trust Board, co-chair of the Lexington Black Prosperity Initiative, chair of the Carnegie Center for Literacy Board, and serves on the Town Branch Project, Town Branch Partner. She is also a partner of the Service Learning and Civic Engagements Consortium at the University of Kentucky, which provides training, access, and opportunities for faculty and their classes regarding community projects. Lisa was born in Harlan County, Kentucky, and raised in Lexington. She continued her education at the University of Kentucky, where she received her bachelor's and a master's degree. Lisa is a graduate of the Center for Organizational and Technological Advancements Academy for Leaders at Virginia Tech. She is also a member of the Omicron Delta Kappa National Honor Society. And we are thrilled that she agreed to give us some of her very busy time to be with us this morning to talk about the commission. Thanks, Lisa.
Well, thank you. And I will tell you, I see that you're recording this, so I'm going to have to be good. I try to mix in a little bit of humor and also fun as I talk, because one of the things that I find about the work that I do is that it has to be engaging. People have to, sometimes they want to stop me and ask a question along the way. That is perfectly fine as well. And I think I also, in the process of this, tried to do something with my screen. So I see myself over here and you guys are in a little box in the corner here. I don't know what I've done, but this is what happens when you fly in the middle of the night and off of vacation and you try to figure out your Zoom. And so hopefully I will be able to share you guys can get me to share my screen a couple of times too, because there are a couple of things that I want you to see that I have. So I don't know who the host is, but at one point in the next, oh, okay,
Yeah,
And-
I'm the host and I've
Okay,
got you
perfect.
set up. You can share, and I did spotlight your video for everybody. So that might be why you're seeing a change.
Oh, okay, that's probably, I was like, what just happened? What did I do? Well, the good thing is that you guys are in a circle right in front of my face, so I don't have to sit and look at myself the whole time. I can actually see you guys, so that's perfect. But so let's go ahead and get started. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you all, first of all, is that this is probably not going to take all of the 30 minutes, because what I really want to do is give you some highlights about the process. Then I want to talk a little bit about some of the results that we have right now. And then I want to talk about and maybe map out some questions and design what you think you can do. And then also, if you don't have a full understanding of what you think you can do right now, pose those questions to me and I can take those back to my core team, and then we can begin to build that relationship that's necessary. So let's go ahead and get started. So do you have a question? You're on mute now.
Sorry. Actually, I just wanted to mention one thing. I had from our webinar the other day, I messed with our Zoom settings and I tried to set it back. So right now you don't have the ability to comment. So if you have questions, just save them. You should have the reaction bar at the bottom, and you can always raise your hand later and we can answer questions at the end. I know typically we'll have people put questions in the chat box, but we'll have to use that feature and just be flexible. So sorry, everybody, that things are a little bit different. All right. Thank you, Lisa.
And if there's some burning question that somebody needs answered right in the middle of me talking, please, you can interrupt me, raise your hand and say, Lisa, this question needs to be answered. So first of all, I know that you've had a couple of people come to speak to you before. You've had the mayor come, and I think you've also had Roz Akins as well as Dr. Gerald Smith come. So I'm not really sure all of what they talked about and how they broke down the recommendations, and they talked about their preparation for it. But we're now in what we call the second phase. So they created the recommendations. And so now what my mission is preparation of the process to see progress and then yield the results. So, everybody wants to get right to the results, but nobody wants to talk about the process and the structure that needs to be built to get there. And nobody talks about the fact that things need to be sustainable. We are not going to, and you'll hear me repeat a couple of these phrases several times in this conversation, is that these are not one and done, one-offs and checklists. These are things that really are improving people's lives. So we have to look at this in its totality. We have to look at this as our community, as a collective, in order for us all to move forward. And for this to make sense, this is not just an appendage of our community, these recommendations. This is what keeps us all thriving as a whole, not just one subset of people. We have shed the light on the fact that a part of our community, Black and Brown people, are not having the same equal results in thriving with generational wealth, job security, and all the other things that other people enjoy as a majority. But we do know that there are ways for us to fix that. And in order to do that, we have to look at the systems and the structures that are in place and really ask those critical questions. So one of the first things that I always tell people is that right now, it's our goal as a community to actually design an exceptional, thriving community. And that's what you have to look at that. You have to envision that and see that not as in separate pieces, but see that as a whole. What are we really thinking about? What do we see Lexington as? I mean, I think one of the things that's so good about this whole process of visioning it is that we've all been cooped up in our houses for like a year and some months here but now we're starting to come out of that. And so when we come out of that, we're not going to come back the same, right? We're thinking differently. We are different because of what we've seen, what we've heard, how we've actually been, I guess, how they country folk hunkered down in the house. That's what we have been for a very long time. So when we come back out of our houses, what do we want to see our community look like? And we have seen the pain of people. We have seen the stark differences. We have seen what social media, we've seen what television gives us. Now let's present what we want people to see us as in our own community. And I think that's another part of this too, is that who do we see ourselves as? And I always tell people that we have a lot of really great titles, smartest city. We've got, and I think at one point they said we have the most brains of any city in the state of Kentucky. And I mean, all these just really weird accolades and titles that we get. And then when we look at that and we look at the data and we look at how it breaks down into the different subsections and the different people and how they actually enjoy what's going on in our community, how can we be the smartest community if we've got 54 recommendations that talk about the issues that deal with Black and brown inequities in our community? We might be the smartest, but are we using that brain power to support what we can with our own community? And so I think the important part is how do we connect that, and how do we make that something that is in its totality a beautiful thing and very powerful for our community to move forward. So I look at things in these big, broad ways, but then I also bring things down into small details, which drives some people crazy, but it's necessary for things like this, because you really do need to have details and you need to have structure as you move forward. So, and I'm way off topic here. I'm only on point 2 and I'm supposed to be on point 8 by now. So, I might take 30 minutes. I don't know here. But, and I think one of the other things that people ask is that, why were you selected to do this? What's different about you than it is about 70 people that put together this entire report? Why should you be the person to do this work? And one of the things that I can say is that, number one, I am very dedicated to what I do. I'm very focused in my job at the university, and I'm very focused on our community. And I think, and I also believe that things can be done. I have seen things done in other cities before. I have seen things done in our community before when we put our collective power and people together to get things done. I have seen it work in a boardroom with people that don't look like me, or groups that do look like me. So I know things are possible. And I think one of the reasons why the mayor asked me to be a part of this process is, number one, we've spent a good deal of time in relationship building over the years. We've been in meetings, in and out of meetings. And so we understand each other's thought process. We also understand the necessities in our community. And we've actually been in committees where we've gotten some things done before. So, and I also have over 20 years worth of engaged work in working with communities, building relationships, really and truly trying to help people understand that we are all connected, and that if one part of our community has an issue, then we should all have an issue with that one part of our community that's not thriving. So I think that's some of the reasons why the mayor has actually selected me to be a part of this. And also because while I didn't spend a long time on council, I did get a chance to build really great relationships with council members across the board. I got a chance to build an even firmer relationship with our vice mayor and all of the at-large council members as well. So I think the building of the relationship piece, but then also understanding our community. I understand it in a broad perspective, from education to business. I've been a part of Minority Business Expo for many years. And so there are many things that I think I bring to the table that support this work. So I only say this not to say, oh, look at me and look at all the things that I've done. I talk about this just to give you a little bit of an understanding of why I'm at the table and what's important to me. And that every time I open my mouth and talk, it's going to be about bringing people together. It's going to be about looking at their expertise. It's also going to be looking at the data. It's going to be tying things back to getting results. And it's actually also looking at structures, how things are set up now, and how we don't put ideas, wonderful recommendations into a system that is broken. You identify and work with a system, and then you move something forward. And so I ask those critical questions, and I do the work. And I think that's one of the reasons why the mayor has had me as a part of this conversation. And I bring everyone along with me. I got no shame in my game. Also, I don't have any ability to just be the only person in the room leading this effort. It's going to take every single person in this community that knows what's going on to be a part of the legacy building that we're trying to create here. So that's one of the reasons why. And then also there's something I found on the internet today, which I thought, oh, how relevant. I'll just say it real quickly and I'll move on. But there was a motivational speaker that came into town. I think it was probably about maybe 10 years ago. Her name is Lisa Nichols, and she does a lot of work on the national level now. And she talks a lot about what she does and how important it is to not just talk about only process, but to talk about results. And she says that one of the things that she calls this, and I didn't know I was doing it, but obviously I'm doing it. And she said it's something called SNAP, and it's super networking at an accelerated pace. And I'm like, that's interesting, because that's exactly what I'm doing right now as I talk to you about how I formed things thus far. And it's not an elevator speech when you talk to people, but it's really talking about powerful connections and how you can yield the right results. And it's also looking at this entire community as a big room and looking at the other side of the community, the farthest side of the community, and see that as that's where the solutions and the results lie. But then in between all of that, we're populated with all of these different people who've got all these expertise. They're all kind of talking and milling around and doing their thing in the community, but the real result of what is possible is on the other end of the room and community. So what do I have to do to get to that other side? I've got to build a team of people to come along with me so that we get to that end result. And so I was like, ooh, I do that all the time. So I'm going to say that today in this meeting. So that's my new thing that I've got SNAP. And so I don't know if I don't know if that's a cool thing or not. My daughter would probably roll her eyes and go, no, Mom, that's not cool at all. But anyway, just to let you know that it's extremely important to me that networking and bringing people and conversations together, just like what I'm doing today, are extremely important to me. And I will continue to do that as we talk about this work. One of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about is that when you design an exceptional, thriving community, then you also look at the subset that's got the issue. And the first thing that I thought about was, how do you create systems in which Black and Brown families are whole, they're self-sustaining and thriving? And the only answer I could come up with is that you have to provide a sustainable foundation. Sustainable means something that's going to, again, not be a one and done, but something that's embedded into structures that are already in existence, embedded into programming that's already in existence, or creating something new. And so I think that's part of this whole process of understanding how to create the thriving community. But then you go back to and say, Black families as a whole, Black and Brown families, how do we get there? And you have to ask those questions as you go along. So to address these 54 recommendations that the commission has put together, which are, it's just massive. And a lot of people look at that and go, it's almost unobtainable, because how do you even bite off the first bit of this and begin with it? Where do you start? What do you do? Who do you involve? What's going on? I mean, I've heard that from so many people, and a lot of people scratch their heads going, this is a lot to take in. And can one community take on all of these issues? And I say to people, and the mayor and I have talked about this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, because it took not just decades, it took centuries to get to where we are now. So to think that one program with just a real sprinkling in the community at one point in time is going to affect every single thing in a community is not possible. But to know that every person in your community understands the importance of these and are a part of the process and are moving along and building networks, and also having their businesses, their corporations, their organizations, their educational systems tied to this work, that's sustainable, that's foundation building, and that's holding everyone accountable in our community to move forward. So it's something a little different than just saying, oh, we're going to stick a program here and it's going to work. It's not that easy. It's never going to be that easy for anything. And that's what I consider a Band-Aid. So we have to go a little bit deeper than that. And to go deeper than that, you've got to, first of all, look at the city and say, number one, as I've told everybody, this city structures were not set up to just deal with social justice issues all day long. First, we have to build a team of people. And that is 13 members of people that I work with on a regular basis. And I think Jen and Mary, I've talked to you about this before. And that includes the mayor, chief of staff, CAO, their law department, social services. I mean, the list goes on. And I meet with them once a week. Every single week, we start our Mondays off by meeting. And we talk about the structures that are set up right now and how they are actually affecting on a positive or a negative note. And that's in conjunction with these 54 recommendations, because you can't just throw a recommendation at something, again, as we've talked about, if the structure itself doesn't support it. And also, we know that the city can't take on every single one of these recommendations. And so right now, one of the questions that I have for them is, people in the community want to know how they can help directly or indirectly with these recommendations. Help me, help them build their own roadmap and be a partner with this. So that's one of the other pieces of this that's extremely important, is that we have really, I think, great conversations, solid conversations on a regular basis. Some of the things that we talk about are uncomfortable. Some of the things that we talk about are, how do we get to this result, and make sure that we don't just hammer it on people's heads, but bring people to the conclusion it's necessary to do. And so that's 13 members that I have. Then I have a group of 4 core members that I work with biweekly, and I call them my research team. And that research team is the group that anything and every idea that I have along the way, I ask them to research it for me. Anything from best practices across the nation, who's involved in that, what cities are taking on similar types of things that we are, so that we can be in contact with them. I said, we don't need to be in this alone. There are other cities I know that are addressing things like this as they deal with all the other issues that are going on in their communities. And so we are in the process, and we have found about 4 of those cities, one of those being Akron and several others that are very similar. And they are very interested, these cities are, in moving along with us and having contact and building relationships and talking about, this is what worked for us. This is not what worked for us. This is who we helped fund, who helped fund some of our ideas. And here are some people that we just simply could not change any of their thought processes, but here's how we were able to make something happen anyway. So, helping us along the way, building our own networks together. And also, the other thing that I have done from the very first couple of months is meeting with all co-chairs of the commission. That includes the top co-chairs, Dr. Wright. No, Dr. Wright. I've got so many people's names in my head. Sorry. Dr. Roz Akins, and then Dr. Gerald Neal. No, it's not even Gerald Neal. It's Gerald Smith. I've got all these Geralds in my head. I've got all these other people's names in my head, but I'm going to get it right here in a minute. So anyway, having conversations with them, talking a little bit further and saying, where do you think we should start? What are some of the things that you feel like are the most important to begin with? And talking with the vice mayor, talking with also each council member. I have had a conversation with each and every one of them. I've also given each and every one of them homework from my former teacher days, in talking about what is most important to them, what could be part of their legacy as a district council person, and looking at how things are affecting their own district areas and what can they do. And then also, when the COVID-19 relief funds are coming in, how we can apply some of those to some of the things that are happening. So, and also brought on, of course, University of Kentucky as a partner. And I didn't do that by myself. The president, Capelito, has decided that this work is very important, and it needs to be something that the university should be a strong connecting partner with. And so I will talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I also brought on 2 of our funding arms here in town, United Way of the Bluegrass, as well as Bluegrass Community Foundation, and having them on board as we talk through the recommendations and look at programs that are already in existence or things that could be formed, talking to them about who on the national level that we need to look at for funding, and also talking about funding streams with corporations, getting our mindset and helping us understand, number one, the city can't afford to do all of this by themselves, but then also as a community, if you are a part of a nonprofit or a part of a for-profit, how you might be able to build on getting a grant to support what's necessary because it's something that you feel important, that's important and valuable for you. And this is what you're going to contribute to this whole process. And so bringing those two structures on and having the support of both of those CEOs is extremely important and vital. As I've told everybody, everybody always wants to throw just a few dollars at something that has to deal with education, people of color, women, any issue that isn't high ranking in priority for all of communities. It always tends to get the shorter end of the stick. But in this instance, we all need to understand that an investment in our community really is going to yield us what the results are going to be in the future. So we've got to look at this critically. We've got to talk about it in a way that says, you know, a lot of these corporation arms are really starting to have a giving lens that supports social justice as well. A lot of corporations and organizations, including the university and even the city, are working on statements that talk about social justice, that talk about what has happened in the last year. And as I've always told people, in conjunction with your statement, what are your actions? And so a lot of people's actions will be sometimes in bringing their buying and expertise power. And in another part, it will be the corporations who are giving through their lens. And just an example, PNC Bank is doing this work, and they are dedicating, I think on their national level, I think $1 billion across the nation. And each of the different communities will get a pocket and a pool of those funds. And I've had a conversation with them thus far. And there are going to be several groups of people in this community that could potentially get why, you know, $1 billion sounds like a lot. At the end of the day, if you spread that across all the states that PNC is in, that's probably not going to be a whole lot. But they will have 2 and 3 year sustaining grants to the tune of, I think, $25,000 to $50,000 a year. So anyone could get up to $150,000 by the end of 3 years to build on something or to plan something and support something. And that's just an additional support and pocket of funds that they have on top of the other funds that they always give out in their foundation. So that's an example of organizations and actually a bank that's really looking at social justice in a completely different way and really starting to build guidelines to talk about this is what our intention is. And then if you can match this with your goals, with what we have here, then you have some ability to have some funding. So that's a really great opportunity for our community. And I do know that they are in the process of working on that now, because I had a conversation with them just 2 days ago. So they are just beginning that process. The other part of this that I want to talk about really quickly is when I'm talking about bringing in the University of Kentucky, it's massive, it's huge. We go across our entire state, but one of the things that we have not done a really good job of is really connecting with and talking about, well, we talk about diversity a lot, but we don't really connect it and build the bridges and the actions that are necessary. And right now we have created a DEI plan, which is a diversity, I think it's equity and inclusion plan. But I am going to be tying a lot of these recommendations and work to that plan. So I have spoken with the lead on that, which is Dr. George Wright, that's whose name was in my mind a few minutes ago, and Jason Brooks, who are the lead on that, and talking with different groups within that on how we can support these recommendations and moving forward. And the thing is that it's important for everyone to know you should not take on everything. You should take on what you know you're good at, what you also have a passion for, and what you think is possible in your realm. Don't bite off more than you can chew with this, because it will get you extremely frustrated. Because in order to have success, you've got to be able to have your passion involved in this process, your knowledge involved in this process, and your sweat equity and time. and you don't want to be spread all over the place. That's jobs for me and other people that are at the higher level. You want to be very specific and intentional with your impact. And as I've told everyone, it's every single person in this community can have a part in this. Everybody. It's just what you choose. And that could be a part of what we've just talked about, or what I've just talked about. So another example that I was going to give, but obviously I'm not going to have time for it, but it's the College of Communications, just as an example, to tie it to one of the actual recommendations. One of the recommendations was to create a strategy around media and communications for people of color in our community. And as you see, even on the national level and also on the local level, how people write about, talk about, understand communities of color are sometimes not well thought out because the skill set's not there. So in having a conversation with the Dean of Communications, she has proposed 2 possibilities in working and creating a communications bureau that would have a specific professor who would have 50% of their time tied to this, as well as students as interns that would support this work. And it's also helping students understand how to write about their communities in a very real-time way. And it would bring, we think, students, once they get to the end of this and they graduate, you populate the system with more people who understand their communities. And so this is a part of changing the structure and the mindset of your communities. How do you do that? Not just by a program, but by really immersing people in the process. And this is one of those ways. And so talking about specifics and how you take some things on, that's just one example of what we would do with one of the recommendations and how we could flesh that out and make it as large or as small and intimate as possible and be a real nice relationship with the city that's never been there before, with you've got a communications, literally a college, and you've got a public relations office that has over 40 people with Jay Blanton, and we're not really connected with and working with our communities or with our city's government's public relations office. I mean, we are, but not in the way where we have a relationship and we have this whole communications bureau and that people really understand our community. So, we have great stories about what we do in our community, but how do we immerse those students in this as well? So that's an example of what can be done with the recommendation. Another thing that we're doing at the University of Kentucky is I have Dr. Christina Haynes, and she's an associate professor in college in food and agriculture and environment. And she is an expert in designing logic models. And one of the things that, so a logic model is taking a team of proposed partners and building a roadmap. And basically, so you would take one of the recommendations and you would build it out with the whole team of people at the very beginning that you feel like are necessary to get something done. So that's what we're going to do with each of the recommendations that the mayor has decided to take on that are long-term, moderate, and some of the short-term ones. And we have already created, we didn't create a lot of logic models for some of the work that's already been done. And I'll try to show that to you in a minute because there is some progress that's happened on some of the recommendations. And those are things that could be done immediately that we've been working on in conjunction with me building this work and these relationships. But this roadmap will present like shared relationships among resources, activities, and the outputs, and the impact for the recommendation. And it depicts the relationship between the recommendations, activities, and its intended effects. And so the logic model really is prompting hard thinking on how to achieve the right result. So again, and it's also holding accountability. It's not getting people in a room talking about just the recommendations and saying, okay, this group's going to take on that one. This group will talk about doing this one. It's really looking at who needs to be in the room to address one specific issue. For instance, in health disparities, one of the issues is food deserts across Lexington in the East End and West End. And one of those is I think it's a Dare to Care mobile van. So the mayor is very interested in that being one of the very first logic models that we build out because she wants to do something very similar to what is happening in Louisville, which is where they have a And I always tell people, I'm dating myself when I say this, but the bookmobile vans that used to come through the communities when I was a kid. And so something like that, but much larger. In Louisville, they have an 18-wheeler that's outfitted like it's refrigerated. It's got all the foods that you would want to have on it, and it drives through the neighborhoods. Here, we want something that's a little bit more intimate, but yet provides fresh fruits and vegetables. It also provides farming opportunity, farming foods and vegetables, fruits and vegetables that are from Black soil, which is through Ashley Smith. So partnering with Black farmers, partnering with Kroger, who's very interested in this idea, and then also partnering with other people in the community who can actually help in outfitting and identifying what a van would look like. Looking for partners actually in the local level as well as the state level who are interested in this type of work. So building that network of partners and team of people first who are very interested in this, and bring some others along with the process. And so you're meeting the need of a food desert in these particular areas with this particular built out type of van that would, and it's not a van, I think it's more of like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Central Kentucky Blend mobile van. I don't know, it's not an 18-wheeler, and it's not like a camper type size, but it's sort of in between, but something along that level. And just imagine if you have Kroger involved in that process, you've got Black Soil, which is Ashley Smith, and the Black farmers across our state who are a small but mighty group of people feeding people in the community in a way, and also making sure that their cards and other opportunities that they have can support them paying for this, because a lot of the grocery stores that are in these neighborhoods, their main source of income are the lottery tickets and the liquor sales. And when you go in and you look at the other foods, they may have your jerkies and maybe not even something like a jerky, but foods that are not of great quality, beverages that are not of great quality for families, and maybe even on the expired side. So really bringing to a community health and wholeness in that way to support, because of transportation issues and other things. So having something built around an opportunity like that, you bring the people together in the room, you pose the issue, and then you say, you are the partners who can then bring on other partners for us to solve this. And then you work through that in a systematic way in the logic model that also breeds accountability, right? It shows all the partners, it shows where you are in the process, it shows if this is going to be a long-term, a short-term, or a moderate type of a venture. And then you see the results on the other end. So that's what we're trying to do, is create something visual so that it gives people hope, and also understanding that some other things can be done. So let's see. I don't know where my time is here. Let me check. I'm probably well over. But anyway, one more thing that I'll talk about, and then I will shut it down. So when I talked about the visioning process, we talked about the designing of the exceptional thriving community. I think that's it. And then I was going to show you the structure, the organizational chart that I had, but I can show that.
You're frozen for us. I don't know if you can still hear us.
To you.
Oh,
Really?
I think we've got you back now.
Oh, how much did you miss?
Wait, like right after you said, like, I think that's it. And then you're like, I was going to show you something. I was like, wow, right on cue.
You're right on cue. I'm frozen.
But we have time for questions and stuff. And if you wanted to show that, that's, we have time for that.
Okay. And then also there's the other piece was this, just the progress that we've made so far. I can show you that page, or I can give you the actual link to the city page that has all the progress on it that was created and placed there, I think yesterday. So we've been working on that for the last literally 3.5 weeks, the process, and asking the right questions and making sure that before the information goes out, that when people look at it, they can see how it's connected to the recommendation and also what's going to be invested in from the city side, and maybe even from the community side and the council side.
Yeah, that link would be great because we can share that with our outreach circle, where we also have the actual report where people can read as well. Yeah, if you want to share that, that's fine. I think Cindy also has a question.
Okay, Cindy. You're on mute. I'm sure whatever it was just, oh, you're still on mute.
Sorry, I was trying to be quiet while you were speaking. You are the right person for this job. I really appreciate this update and what you're doing. One comment and then one question. One of the groups in Lexington that I hope you'll be working with, if you aren't already, is Build. It's a group of 25, 26 churches, and it's a combination of churches with folks of color and folks like me. And we work on issues similar to the kinds of things you're talking about. We do a lot of research on the issues. Build is seen as controversial in some circles in the city, but it's a group of passionate people on the ground who are aware of the challenges and have done some research that you might find helpful. If you get them on board, you'll have a fabulous group of several thousand folks who are committed to the same kinds of things you're talking about. And my question has to do with COVID money. We know that the city is going to get lots of dollars, including funds for early childhood, which can help those early childhood goals. I would bet also with housing. I'm not sure where they're all designated, but I'm wondering what the process is going to be to think about how to use those funds related to your efforts.
Well, thank you for that question. And I touched on it just a bit in my rambling on is what I'll call it. But I have had conversations with each of the council members, and I have asked them with the COVID funding that's coming. And first of all, one of the things that I've got the city on alert about immediately is the guidelines. We don't know what the guidelines are around these relief funds, so we don't really know what it can support about the recommendations. But that's one of the key things, is to look at those, look at the guidelines first and see what is possible. And then I have posed the question to each of the council members of the COVID relief funding. When we look at and understand what can be supported, what would you support? So that was one of their homework assignments to me. I've gotten a few of those into me now. I've probably gotten maybe about 6 or 7 of those conversations have been, and the information for that has been given back to me, so that I understand where some of them are. Some are still in the process of getting their information back, as I posed 3 really intensive questions to them. And again, every time I do talk with different groups within the city, it's important for them to think it through. And as I tell them, what is most impassioned for you, but also what is supporting your district, and then also what do you see as a whole in the entire city is important. So when we find out what is possible, that's when we're going to go in that direction. But I will tell you, a lot of information that's coming back is that people want to see something around a job training center, or some kind of a consortium around job training possibilities. And again, we know these are one-time funds, so we have to look at it in that way, that if you put one-time funds towards something, how are you going to sustain it? That's why I said it's important to build a sustainable foundation. You can't say, I've got this great idea, and then in a year, your funding is gone, you've built no networks, you have no support across your community, and no one is willing to help you with the rest of the work because they weren't involved in it. That's why I say I bring people together in a much different way, because it then holds us accountable. It also shows where the funding streams could potentially be and what the future of this will be. So it's realistically putting something down, and then, just making sure that we follow through with it. Hopefully that answers your question a bit there, but yes, they do know. So that is one. And then also another issue that I will tell you that has popped up and is a question, is that what's going to happen with youth in the summer? Right now, there's a lot of violence that's happening across our city. And how are we going to create avenues and opportunities to keep our kids not just off the street, but supporting what their needs are during that time? And that there's a big difference than housing people and just kind of giving them something to do, rather than tying them to what's necessary and how it feeds their soul. Those are two separate things. And so in order for us to really affect and be on point and work with people who really do need the support, you got to find out exactly what they need and then build that. But that's one of the questions, is that people are very concerned about what the summer will bring. And so that's another thing is, how do we maybe populate some funding towards activities for youth? They talk a lot about the nonviolence, the gun violence, all the kinds of things that are happening in our community right now. But how do we connect with these youth? How do we get them? And so that's a huge question right now. And then also trying to find programming and dollars. So there might be some of that COVID relief funding that will go towards something like that too.
And I believe Tip has a question as well.
Tip Moody, I love that name.
Thank you. I have a really foundational question about logistics. I read this week where at Michigan State, there was a class studying social justice issues. And the class was divided into an all-white cohort and an all-black cohort, which was really ill-conceived and doomed to fail from the very outset. On the front page of yesterday's Herald Leader, the faith leaders who were discussing the mayor's report they were all people of color. I go to a downtown church, which is all white. The past year, we have been discussing social justice issues and how we can, one, better understand them. And my question to you is, how do we become more allied with the communities of color? And how do we get actively involved with them so that we don't just sit back and talk about it among ourselves, but that how we do have some sweat equity and skin in the game, that we do put our time and energy in it with the communities of color so that we actually help with the process.
And I'm writing down everything you're saying, so I'm not falling asleep on you. I'm writing it down. I will tell you, one of the things that I've always been told, even when I was a kid, was that the most segregated time in America is on Sunday morning and the services that are provided, because it separates everyone and everyone goes into their own pockets and they all talk about life and togetherness and love. But then when they come out, how do you make all that work? How do you then begin to blend what your beliefs are with what is right in front of you, which is reality? And I think that's what you're really telling me right now, is that your church and the people that you are having those kinds of conversations, and you need to have those connections, but not just so the connections, but really what can you do? How can you be of service? How can you be a group that will support and also play a role in something that is educating people that look like you, and then also befriending and connecting and creating the relationships that are necessary to make this community better? I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
And I think one of the keys to that is I believe that group of pastors, from my understanding, because I have met with them twice thus far with the city of Lexington. We have met with them a couple of times. Is I think they are welcoming of other organizations, from Jewish to all these different kinds of religious backgrounds and groups, to connect with them. And I think connecting in with maybe one of their top leaders and saying, this is who my church is, this is what we value, and this is what we see going on in our community, and this is how we think we might want to help, but first we want to build a relationship with you. I think it's very key to, and I tell this to people all the time, and it sounds so silly to a lot of people, but it is so true. It's just like anything that we do personally and other. If we don't have the relationships first, so that we can then have that ability to talk about everything. Coming in cold and just saying, okay, what can I do is one thing, but building a relationship, helping people understand who you are, what you stand for. And then same on the other end, that's like almost a breaking of the bread type of conversation that you have that sort of gets you to that next point, which is, now that we understand who each other are and we're comfortable with that, how do we move forward and strengthen power in numbers, right? So building that relationship, finding the right connection in. And, if you need me to maybe check in, I think I know just about all of them, I believe. So if you need me to maybe make that connection and say, there's, Tip Moody is very interested in, and so is his church, and having conversations with you. I will warn you, be prepared, because a lot of times people don't understand not just the emotional toll that this has taken on Black and brown people in our community, but the frustration of feeling like you're going it alone. So be aware of and sensitive, and know that if you are coming authentically to the conversation to build the right relationship, hopefully the reception will not be so stark, but don't expect it to be just something like a love fest. I always tell people, when you're in the midst of crises, people don't have time to worry about your emotions. They're worried more about the facts. And a lot of times you have to sort of take a lot of that, because that's what they've been taking for a long time. And that's one of the reasons why it's built up, the emotion and all the other issues that are involved in the process. So I would say it's about building a great relationship, and it's about telling them who you are and really sharing and saying, here's what we want to do, and walking forward with you. And I think that's like one of the most important things that anybody can do. And I think that's why a lot of people have success, and others who just bulldoze over things and keep going. There's a visceral reaction when you see their face. And there's a reason why, because you have experienced something that was not that internally and unconsciously it comes out. So, we've all had that. And you're like, well, where'd that feeling come from? Well, it's probably from how somebody has made you feel and the experiences you've had with them. So, come into the conversation knowing that it's going to be a very tough conversation, but at the same time, and there are going to be times when there will be differences about things, but also just be very, very genuine and authentic. And I think you'll get a great reception.
Okay.
Hopefully
you.
that helped you some.
I will carry that up the ladder, church. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. It's not going to be an easy road. I'm not one that I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. But I also will tell you that it is possible to build a relationship, because there's a lot that needs to be known about the plight of people that are Black and brown in this community that has just been, it's not been hidden. It's been there the whole time. It's just now that we've got the light shone on it, what do we do as a community? We want to be the best, the smartest city, but at the same time, maybe one of these days will be the best place for existence of diversity. Think about it in a positive way. What could we see ourselves envisioning us to be in the future? And that's why I say the visioning process is extremely important at the beginning, because sometimes you are what you believe and see and know and think. Actually, you are all of that. So if we don't think we can ever do it, we don't believe in ourselves, we don't think that our partners will step up, if we don't think that no one will give us money, well, we might as well not even get out of the starting gate, because I wouldn't want to be a part of that team. Tell you that right now.
Well, we're so thankful that you're sharing all this good information with us, and we want to be respectful of your time. Would you have a moment to ask? We think we have one more question from Mo Murphy. With that,
sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I had to get my mute off. I guess my question is, considering the League of Women Voters, what we do is we want more people to vote, obviously.
Mhm.
We're also involved in redistricting which affects race quite a bit, you know, as far as people being represented in government. What would you envision are, I mean, those are our places that we're working in on a daily basis. We can instruct people how to register people to vote. We can go in and help do that. We can let other people do that. But I think one of our problems in reaching out is we're not huge, but we're also very white. And I'm just saying that, you know, I'm being honest. And so how can we reach out so we can be helpful? Because we need everybody voting. We need everybody's voice heard in our government. It's more important than ever before.
Well, redistricting is coming up, right? That's gonna be
Yes,
coming too.
unfortunately, yes, yeah, and it's a tough question because we don't have, it's all surrounding the legislature, and we don't have laws here to back up some things. We can sue people, but you know, it's just a lot of, we have a lot of issues there.
Mhm.
But I know in redistricting, some people that we had from Louisville that were on a Zoom chat said, well, this is a problem because then you're isolating all the African Americans in this one community in Louisville versus getting more Black votes in more places and stuff like that, which we may not know as much about that as some other people. So, and I don't know, there's a lot of concerns. I mean, I felt really bad when we had a school board situation where in my district, everybody, there's no African American, there's no person, no minority that I know of that's on the school board. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
there's
Right.
which I don't know if we can talk about that. I mean, I could talk about that individually, and I voted individually for an African American person who was in my district. But you know, what can we do? I mean, we would like to get more African Americans on the rolls. We would like to get more former felons who have restore their rights. And we have some tools, but we don't want to say we can help you with this. We would like people to help themselves, and we'd like to help people, but we don't want to come and say we'll do this, because that's not what,
Yeah,
that's not right.
You can't come in saying I'm saving you. I'm here to save
No,
the day.
no, that's disgusting. So I mean, no, that is disgusting. So what we want to do is to help, not to overwhelm. We don't want to tell people what to do, because my thing is, I'm saying to you, we don't know what to do, and we need some advice.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying.
Well, I
Does
think
that make sense?
it did. And I'm going to get that a lot, because a lot of people want to know, what can I do? How can you plug me into this whole process? And the first thing that I'm going to tell you right now is that I did have a few of these that were written down that Mary and Jen and I had talked about before. But now that I've gotten a chance to hear a little bit more about what you all want to see happen, if you could actually put that information, and I have it in my notes here, in a format, in an email for me, questions about the types of things such as, you know, these are the things that we do. We want to be able to get more people out to vote. Redistricting is, you know, the representation in government. Because right now you only have one on council, one African American on council. And with the redistricting, that could potentially go away. You don't know what could happen, because that entire area is quote gentrified now and has turned. And so you also talk about wanting to be helpful, the former felons, restoration of their rights. List some of the things that you want to see happen. And then what I'm going to do is take this back to my core team of people that I talk to on a regular basis. And this is where I have those deep conversations. And then I take it to the larger team, which is the 13 members with the mayor and others. And then we have a conversation about it as well. And then we will get back with you and say, here are some of the ways that we feel like that you can help or be a partner, or we don't know everything, but here are some pathways here immediately that we feel like that you can take on and be of use to this work that we're doing. if
Thank
that would
you.
help you some, because I think it's, again, like I said earlier, it's connecting your skill sets and your passion to parts of this plan, indirectly or directly. And sometimes it may not be directly, and that's what this might be. It's the indirect part of it, but it's still connected. It's still about the buying power. It's still about the representation. It's still about having those voices. And one of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in with these recommendations is that not a lot of people that look like me are sitting in the room making a lot of those decisions. And so sometimes my voice is not there. Male voices, of color is not there to talk about those things. And so it's more than just my lived experiences. It's also a collection of the types of things that I've gathered along the way, that I've actually been able to understand. And so having those discussions in a room changes sometimes how something is set up.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate what you're doing. And I'm glad it's not just saying, well, we feel good because we talked about working against racism, but we didn't really implement it. So, and I think we feel the same way. I think we want to know how we can implement so we can help reduce this. And I think the other part of the problem is most of us, whether it was, we bought a house, but in America, there is still segregation, and it's de facto. It's not de jure anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's just, we've got to break all this down, but it's like, what can our piece be? And I wanted to let you know that we do want to be part of this piece.
Well, I thank you. And one of the other things that I'll be doing as well, I'll be telling other people to do, is putting together a listing of all of the partners, people that I talked to, and also people that have reached out to us and said, we want to be a partner. And then that's going to be a part of this website as well. And again, it's right now, it doesn't look the way I want it to look. It looks the way it's supposed to be designed because of the web people and all the different ways that it has to be populated, rules and regulations. But when you click on something, then you can kind of see the work that's being done. Hi, Shayla. I see her now. Hi. So one of the things that I would love to do is, again, take back this information, really connect with people and say, they're very, very interested in being a part of this work. And then even talk to them a little bit about TIP, because I know the mayor has great relationships and is starting to build a stronger relationship with the pastors. Maybe talk to her a little bit about that too. But I think reaching back to you and getting, if you might want to put that on that list as well, it's an offshoot, but it's a question that can support. And I'll have it in writing so that way we can take it back. One of the other things too is having something in writing and then watching it go through a process and get a result at the end.
Tip, you said you had like a follow-up, like quick communications question.
Yes, I have a really quick question. You referenced a budding communications infrastructure reaching communities of color. As I will be handling the public relations part of our efforts going forward, and automatic restoration of voting rights is particularly passionate to me. When will this communications infrastructure be up and running? When could I access that? Because quite frankly, I see that as an invaluable resource for us.
Well, the proposal came to me last Wednesday, and we've been talking about it for the last 2 weeks. We now have to turn it into the president and then have to talk about funding to support it. So one of my things is that some of these I want to be fast tracked and things that I don't want to have no for an answer. And a lot of people think because I'm so sweet and I smile at you that I don't really have that other side that kind of wants to push it through. But that's that side that we all have, that if there's something intentional that we have and we want to make sure it happens, and that's something that is necessary. It was a recommendation that was stated that said, we've got to have this media communications piece and we've got to do it right. And so I can't give you a time on that other than just to tell you, I would hope in the next 2 months, we could at least have students populating it. And then also one of the things that we talked about in its stead of having it up and running immediately is to maybe attach it to one person in the communications department that could also have sort of like that it's sort of like a discussion on a regular basis with the city until we kind of get that up and running. We'll have that ability to have someone consult and give recommendations and support things like what you're talking about. But we're getting ready to run into the summer months at UK, and a lot of people know that a lot of our professors and faculty are on the 9-month, which means they disappear very quickly after May unless we actually pay them to stay around for the summer. So we've got to get some people involved in this process before they jump into their summer break. But that's another question that we can add to. Please add that to your list. Is that it's extremely important that you want to connect with that media group, and when can that be set up? That also helps me to provide a little bit more pressure to get that done.
It sounds wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. You've just given us so much to think about. And as Mo said, Maureen Murphy said, we've got a lot of resources we feel in the league. And I think one big important part is the fact that we're trying to educate the community and also provide them with information about what's going on and what needs to be done in various areas. And I think that's how we could be helpful to the commission in laying this foundation and getting some things actually accomplished in the community. I love the way you laid out the whole foundation. It's a very thought out, structured type of thing. And I think that's what this is needed to make some progress. So we appreciate your time being with us today. We will send you that email. We will solicit everybody's ideas and send you the final form about how we feel we can help in this effort. And I know we have already talked about making this one of our cornerstone programs for this coming year, which we're going to approve after your talk is finished. And we'll be having some programs maybe delving more closely into some of the issues that were brought up by the commission.
Before I leave, what I'll try to do is put the, I guess it's the direct connection into the progress to date so that you all can have that as well.
That would be great.
Let me see if I can do this. This is really sad. This is what happened. I tried to have a couple of days of vacation and now I don't even feel like I know what I'm doing.
Oh.
Let's see here. I can try to, and you said that there is a possibility to embed it in the chat. Is that what you said earlier, Jen? Is that possible?
The chat is disabled. I tried to re-enable it, but I think because the meeting had already started, the chat is not available. But if you want to email that information to me, I can distribute it.
That's what I'll do. I'll email it to you. And like I said, it's up right now. There's a letter from myself and the mayor on the webpage. And there's also the progress to date. And it talks about all of the recommendations that are tied to that we have worked on so far, and then also the investment of funding. And it didn't get into the housing and gentrification piece of it, but asking questions along the way to build that structure properly as it's formed. So I'll make sure that you get that. I'll send it to you as soon as I get off of this.
Thank you, Lisa. We appreciate that very much. And thank you for your time and for sharing what's going on with the commission and how you're setting things up. It's wonderful information, and we hope to be a partner in that.
Well, thank you. And we hope that you are the partner in the best way possible. And thank you for it's only going to take me 15 minutes and now it's an hour later. So
that's all right.
Thank you all for hanging in there with me, and have a great day.
Thanks. You
Thanks
too,
so
Lisa.
much.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Shayla.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody else, hang on. We're not done with our business part of the meeting.
Okay, are we going to try to see this we're going to do the program first. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah,
jumping ahead.
Let me share that. I do want to mention that if you have not read the report, sorry, I'm trying to like share my screen. I've got a lot of screens available. Let's see. We'll try this one and we'll see how this goes. All right. So this is our outreach circle. This is what it looks like on a phone. Here's where you can get, like, for example, we have the link to the meeting today. But here you can also read the report for the Mayor's Commission. So it's an easy way to access this. I really highly recommend reading this. And at the beginning, there gives the introduction. There's a lot of historical information here that I was not aware of. And I think that's really, really useful. So anyway, let me jump back out of here. And see, after you look at it, you have the opportunity to share it with other people. So, and I know that this would make Lisa very happy if we spread the word. So, you can then email the commission information to other people. All right. Anyway, getting back to our program plan. So
yeah. Jen, I wanted to say something right off about the program plan, and I didn't see this when I looked at the agenda, but it says work towards racial inequity in our community.
Oh, geez. We gotta fix that. Yeah. No. All right. There we go. That was a terrible thing.
Okay, so
I think I started out address, and then I was like, and then I changed my sentence and forgot to fix.
I figured you were working on your words and just didn't realize what was there.
Actually,
okay.
I'm gonna take that down from our website. Okay. Anyway, that's terrible. All right.
All right, let's look at that. And you can look at them for more details in that planning meeting document, which Jen has the link there. But basically, number one is working toward racial equity in our community. We're already trying to use the DEI lens for league work, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, we've been doing some trainings on those that are available from the U.S. League of Women Voters, and you can always go online and sign up for one of those. And then we had talked about, once we had that program on the Mayor's Commission, where we had the mayor and the two co-chairs, we talked about how we would like to look more closely at some of the issues that they brought up, some of the recommendations, maybe even get some of the committee people, one of whom is in this meeting today would be Shayla Lynch, who was in the housing component. I hope I'm right, Shayla. I believe that's correct. And so that is number one. And then number two, engage active members and increase our membership. So we're talking about building capacity, and our working membership people this year, led by Cindy Heine, has really worked on welcoming new members, trying to find out the information about what they really are passionate about, and kind of connecting them with the things that we do so that they can be included right away. And then Jen is always working on making us better advocates and giving us more technical skills. So training to become more effective in advocacy work, and utilizing those national trainings, because they really are excellent. And then creating an internship for college students. We could always use help, as Jen connected with Hannah Koff, who's working on our oral history. And that's wonderful, because she's actually, taking that on with our help and kind of leading us forward. 3 is voter enfranchisement and the youth voter registration. TIP has been working really hard on that enfranchisement, along with a number of other people. And we're always trying to look at the inequities in voting and encourage people and getting as many people registered as possible. the We Vote. Mark Scar is going to be working again on the high school voter registration, hopefully in person in the fall. And then we talked a little bit about the oral history program. You know, we've had the training. You can look at the training online or on Outreach Circle and be trained yourself. And if you know of people that should be interviewed and have wonderful history for us to know about and keep for the future, or if you'd like to be an interviewer, we always need people to help with that. And then we will, of course, still be working under COVID, hopefully not in quite the same way we did this past year. But we need to build our collaborations. We tried, I think we had a good start on that, maybe, especially with this women's panel. If you haven't seen the April Women's Panel, it was an outstanding program, I have to say. And we had 7 groups that were working with us, community groups that we can try to collaborate with in the future. So we're trying to have a lot of outreach with other nonpartisan groups, that nonprofit groups that work in the same areas that we're working. So that's good. And then we're always trying to connect with people virtually. And of course, the Outreach Circle helps that, which is C. And there's been several of us that have been pulled kicking and screaming in some cases into Outreach Circle. But as Jen has been showing us, it's really, you know, once you get in and start playing around with it, you can do all kinds of things with very little effort. So it's a wonderful thing. And then, you know, we were kind of cheated in our centennial celebration. We did finish a second part of that, which was the women's panel this month. And with our movie last year and all that, that presentation at the Lyric Theater. So anyway, do people have questions about these programs? Something you should think we should have put in there that we did not? There's a lot of things to work on. All right, are we ready for a motion about you know, having this as our program for the year, the general outline of programs for this year? Is there a motion from the floor?
This is
Yeah.
Cindy. I would move that we adopt this program agenda.
And this is Mo, I second.
Great. Are there some questions or concerns about this? Okay. If not, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, thank you. Our program passes. Okay, are we going to see that video, Jen, or?
Yeah, so I'm gonna cue that up right now. We'll probably have to watch a little commercial here. Skip, here we go.
The women of the suffrage movement were incredibly brave, unbelievably persistent, and absolutely unwilling to take no for an answer. And they got no and no and no and no and no.
The women of the suffrage movement were tenacious, they were courageous. They were women who were fighting against a system where everything was stacked against them. They really were told to sit down and shut up, but that is not what they were going to do. If I were to describe them in one word, I would say fearless. They 100% were willing to take on this massive American institution that was men in white.
Okay, let me move out to the dining room.
Courage and optimism that is something that should be a model to all of us. We stand on their shoulders, and we have to recognize that we have people standing on ours as well. And would that we could draw upon their courage, their optimism, their determination that they would succeed.
I do see myself in those characteristics. I believe I am determined, I am persistent, and I am ready to make a change. in this world. I think for anybody who wants to move the needle on rights and opportunities for people in this country, even a country that describes itself and embraces the fact that it's a democracy, you have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to take those rights. You have to be willing to stand up and argue for those rights for yourself and for other people. The fight for equality, for the right to vote, was 72 years long. It wasn't a short fight. And it wasn't one that many who started knew that they were going to be able to finish, but they did it anyway because they knew the importance to future women, to me, to my granddaughters one day, to the people who will come behind us.
I think they believed that in their core, that no matter what circumstances they were in, that their voices should and would carry the power to be able to change things.
I think the word stubborn is a very gendered word, but I have learned to embrace it. I think that the women of the suffragist movement were extremely stubborn and refused to yield. And that is extremely important in how I see myself.
Oh, I'm definitely tenacious, like the women who were in the suffrage movement. I really am going to make my point. I'm really going to insist that justice be done. I'm going to speak up. I'm not going to let somebody tell me that blue is red and red is blue.
I think persistence and resilience is something I see in myself. Others might describe it as being pig-headed and not giving up. So I'm not sure it's always described in a positive way, but I don't mind.
I really believe those women paved the way for us to have our own voice. They spoke up, and I think they spoke up on behalf of us so that we would be able to have our own voice in this era.
That's wonderful. I liked it. Okay. I hope you've been able to look at some of the committee reports. These are end of the year reports, so they're rather long, but we've tried to talk about everything that's occurred. And in spite of the pandemic, a lot has occurred. I don't know if there's anything that I should really highlight. Jen, is there anything you wanted to say about voter services or we vote?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, a lot of the stuff that we did, actually, I was like, we didn't do much in voter services. And then when I started putting together our committee report, I was like, oh, we actually did do quite a few things, even though it was much different than we normally would do. So yeah, we weren't, you know, out at the festivals and doing that kind of thing, but we did a lot of radio shows, and we really beefed up like our, you know, some of our social media stuff right before the election and stuff, and really engaged with the county clerk, you know, really advocated with, and this was kind of, you know, in my dual role on the state board and with the Lexington League, really advocating for getting voting information publicized on the Go Vote KY, because that information was not being put up there. So that was like a big key, and trying to make sure that people had the right information, because there's a lot of organizations that were trying to, you know, had the right idea of trying to get information, but the information was outdated or incorrect. And that, you know, I mean, that's because Kentucky was sort of delayed in determining what the plan was going to be for voting. And so, anyway, so that was a big push this year. And, you know, I think really the one thing that I do want to say is that looking forward into this next year, one of our big things that, and this will also be at the state level, but we need to address on our local level, is making sure people have a photo ID, because that was a new law. It kind of got, it wasn't a big push last year because it was sort of waived because of the coronavirus pandemic, but we have basically 2 years before, or a year and a half, until the next election. And so now is the time that we need to be educating people about what the requirements are going to be under this new law, and make sure that they have the resources to be able to get that, and that ID, so they can vote. And, you know, we know this issue disproportionately affects people who don't have a driver's license, you know, and that's going to be, yeah, a big issue. So anyway, if you want to get involved with helping with that, that would be awesome. Or if you know people who want to get involved with that, then, I think, that's another thing this year is that we're really wanting to expand, our active membership and people who are getting involved with things. And voter services is a great avenue to draw people into the league. I think it's like a boots on the ground type of thing that people really get kind of like this feel good about. And then we'll gradually get them, like send them off to the state league and work with Cindy to get into the meat of legislative issues. But, this I feel like is really like kind of like a good gateway for league work. So yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Okay, thanks, Jen. I was kind of amazed, just as Jen said she was when she looked back at the year. We have had 7 programs so far this year. We have one coming up in May, which is yet to be put together, but it will happen. And then in June, we actually have another program coming, which is the program that Sharon Stewart has been working on, or will be working on, which is, I have just totally blanked.
Braver Angels.
Braver Angels, sorry. So that'll actually be number 9. So we've had a lot of programs this year, and we will continue next year, and we need your ideas, we need your help. So please think about that. And even ideas are welcome. Any
And I
questions?
think Mary, I just want to mention the one next month that we were talking about
Oh, right.
with the Icelandic model. That was kind of something that kind of came up when we were talking about the opioid epidemic. And
Right.
there was a doctor there that had talked about how in Iceland, they have this model where they plug kids into the thing that they're passionate about and really support them in that. And I think this really ties in with the information that Lisa Higgins-Hord just mentioned. And so I really think that we should like communicate with her office about this program. And I think it's going to be timely coming up on the summer. And so anyway, just a plug for that. And definitely like Mary mostly puts these programs together herself. And, she does have like a little bit of help there, here and there, but like, show up to the programs, like please be in attendance. It is really embarrassing when like we have a program and like 2 people show up. So, and particularly if you're on the board, I feel like it's, it's part of your responsibility to one, get the word out, share information with other people, and then like just show up. We're not asking you to speak or do anything. It's really easy right now. I mean, turn off your video and do your dishes or whatever, but like, at least have an additional Brady Bunch square on the screen. I mean, of course, we want you to engage and pay attention, and best practices would be like, have your video on, be engaged. But again, like, it's hard for us to get high-powered, great speakers. If we have them come and there's like 3 people in the meeting, then they're not going to want to come back. And so, this is something that we need to do to, support Mary but also, I mean, supporting our league. And this is a great way for people to hear about the mission of the league, hear about what we're doing, what we're interested in, invite your friends. If we're not doing the topics that you want to know about or you're interested in, then let us know. Like, we are more than willing to take suggestions and provide the programming that interests you. So anyway, that's my plea.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks. The essay committee has been working, but they have had to create a new deadline, extend the deadline for submissions, because we truthfully haven't had very many. We feel like we had a lot of submissions last year, but we kind of feel like COVID might have made students not real anxious to have to do something else, write an essay. But anyway, it's been extended to April 30th. So those of you that have said that you would be glad to read some essays, please make sure that Megan knows that you're on board with that, and that will be happening at the end of the month. And then we will have those presentations. Candidate forums, that was all online. Liza did a great job on that with help from other people. There's no elections in 2021. So we'll be gearing up and doing things for next year. The book club has been great fun on a personal note, and Maureen's done a great job getting us wonderful books, suggesting books, and other people have suggested. And I was glad to see the book that she chose for May, or someone chose, because a friend just told me last night that she had just read that book. So I was like, well, I'm reading it too. So anyway, but it's great fun. And thanks, Maureen. Observer Corps is just getting off the ground. It's been around for a while, but we've had our first meeting and a training. You can go online and look at that training. It was very good. And this is another thing that you can do that doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it's very helpful to keep us up to date with what's happening in our community, and maybe let us know about some issues that we need to jump in and work on. Public relations, we are thrilled that Tip is going to be the overall person. That doesn't mean he's doing all the work, folks. So we have to jump in and get him some more people to help, especially in that area of social media and that type of thing. There's a lot been happening in the league with radio and other communications. So we've really, work has been done, and Outreach Circle is going to be a large part of that this year. So thank you, Tip. And we want even better publicity. That's always been an area where we haven't excelled very much, unfortunately. But we think Tip is going to take us into new horizons here, Tip. Our membership has built. Cindy and other people have been doing a great job, and I think we've all been trying to reach out to people. So let's continue that effort. And I think that welcoming part is a big part of it, where one of us is calling and talking to those people, and welcoming them and talking about how they can tap into what the league does. I think that's really important. Thanks to Cindy and other people for the nominating committee and all the work they did. Vote 411. I thought that report, if you haven't read it, I thought that summary, I know we felt maybe that it wasn't doing all it needed to do, and there certainly are ways it can be improved, but there really were a lot of work users. So that's pretty exciting. If we can just get more candidates to kind of plug in and maybe coordinate that effort to have candidates maybe not have to fill out questionnaires for 16 different groups that can be combined together. Anybody have some questions about that, or particular issues on any of those summaries? Okay. Jen, what else do we need to talk about?
I guess that's it. It's 12:01, and even though we went way over on our speaker, we still managed to get it all done. Yeah, I think, I'm really excited about this year. There's a lot of great opportunities. We're going to have great people on the board. We've had great people on the board. And I think that we're starting to, but we've had people wearing like a lot of different hats. And so now we're getting more people on the board, so people don't have to wear as many hats as individuals. And so I think that's really going to help us. And we, I think that this, as Tip was kind of talking with Lisa about this communications connection at UK, I think that would be really helpful. And we need to tap into that to try to get maybe some students that can do our social media. Sadie has been doing our social media, like our Twitter and Instagram, for several years. But she started when she was 14, and so she is graduating from high school, and so she's not going to be with us, and so basically in 2 weeks, like, she's not going to be doing that anymore. So I know we keep talking about that we need somebody, but we have yet to get someone. So anyway, be thinking about all the young people that keep in mind, like, I was first introduced to the league when I was in college, and that is the only reason I am here today. So, the people and experiences that I had then, when I decided that, hey, I actually maybe should not be ignoring politics and what's going on in the world all the time, the first thing that came to mind was like, oh, I had this experience with the League of Women Voters when I was in college. Maybe I should reach out to them. And then, of course, I talked to Cindy, and then that was like, here I am now. So, but the thing is, if we are not like building those connections now with, even I know people get like really busy with career and their lives and whatnot. If we're not reaching out and building those connections now, those are potentially like our future leaders and the people that are going to get involved later. So, anyway, I'm really excited about, as Mary mentioned, Hannah Koff. She's a graduate student who's going to be working on this oral history project. Honestly, every single one of us should participate in this oral history project and be interviewed, because all of you all have had, experience with the league, even if it's just like, it's one voter registration drive that you wanted to tell a story about. It doesn't have to be some big long thing. It really could just be like an anecdote about an interaction that you had with somebody you were registering to vote, or your experience with, say, leading the book club, or, any experience that you had with the league. This is how we're going to capture our history. And, we look back, like, I mean, this is pretty remarkable. Our organization has been around for 100 years, and we are the organization. We as individuals, we are the people that are the lifeblood of this organization, and so sharing our stories is really, really important. And so, don't be shy. The process is going to be like really simple. It's basically just sitting down and having a conversation with somebody. And but anyway, so check it out. Get on Outreach Circle if you haven't already. I promise it seems painful and like it's a thing, but it's really worth it. You heard Barbara talk about how awesome she thinks it is. So that's a good endorsement. Anyway, that's all I've got. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
I just wanted to do a little reminder. Coming up this week is book club Wednesday night. Coming up the following Wednesday is our board meeting. And we've got some important things to talk about, like our delegates to the state convention, which is, put this on your calendar, please, May 15th. I think it's going to be a wonderful convention. And
oh,
we
yeah.
are.
Is anyone interested in going to convention?
I could go.
Good.
Awesome.
Is there a cost?
No.
Nope.
It's free.
All virtual.
And it's going to be exciting. There's going to be door prizes. Mary and I and Sharon and Mary Jo Rogers have been on the planning committee. So we're mixing it up a little bit this year. There's going to be kind of a few little surprises. Our theme is going to be Race to the Polls. So it's gonna be, we're gonna try and make it as fun as possible, even though that it's online. And
Okay. What's the time frame too?
it is from 10 a.m. and then it's probably gonna be until 2:30 or 3. We're gonna have a lunch break.
Okay. And we sign up for workshops or something, or?
Well,
No.
It's actually the biggest portion. We're going to be changing the bylaws. So our business meeting is going to be a little bit longer than was expected. So like basically the format is in the morning, where there is a business meeting where we do kind of the similar things that we did today, but for the state league, where we approve of bylaws, elect officers, all that kind of stuff. But they talk about, instead of voting on it right away, they talk about it in the morning, and then in the afternoon session, you go back and vote on those things. And so the morning session for that will probably be like 45 minutes. And then the afternoon session is half an hour. But we have we'll have some keynote speakers, kind of like some videos from national. We're also going to be including different work that some of the state committees have worked on in terms of like video products and that type of thing. So we're trying to make it educational, informational, exciting, so you can figure out how you can get involved to work on things, or just even know what's happening. And as I mentioned, there will be prizes. So register early. Registration is not open yet, but we will be sending out information about that soon. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going to also recognize some people that have worked to get some legislation passed and whatnot. So,
Right, and we do want as many voting members as possible, because I think we are eligible for 8 plus you and Cindy on the state level and me as president. So
actually
11?
just 7,
7?
because, and I talked to Fran about this, it turns out that our official, like, there's this complicated formula. If you have over 100 members, you do get 8. But at the time in January, we only had 97 members. So we do not get that extra person. So we have 7, but we'll end up with 10 because Cindy and I don't count because we're already on the state board. And then Mary is our president. So she'll get to go. And then we get 7 other people.
But it'll be good. So put that on your calendar. Okay.
Could I ask a quick question again? Mary, I heard you mention the board meeting, and I don't think I know the time or anything else about it.
It's April 28th, which is a Wednesday night.
Uh-huh.
And it starts at 7. And we try to wrap it up between 8 and 8:30.
So it's
Okay,
always the 4th Wednesday of the month.
Okay, and it's a Zoom meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so will someone send me the link?
Yes, and then also any link for any meeting is going to be on the website, so I can share that real fast. It's going to be under the events, so you just go to LWV Lexington.
Right, that's fine. I can find it now that I know where it is.
All right, and then events, there'll be,
Okay, thank you.
Up there.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lynn. Okay.
Could I add one more thing?
Yes.
This is Cindy. I'd like to make a plug for the May 5th town hall meeting on redistricting that is sponsored by the State League. Our legislature is responsible for redrawing our district boundaries for House, Senate, and congressional seats. Once those boundaries are drawn, they're in effect for 10 years. If anybody follows the Courier Journal, Bob Helleringer, a former legislator, Republican, criticized the league for being interested in this issue since we weren't as deeply engaged in past years. And he basically said that gleefully, the Republicans were going to gerrymander the heck out of the state. So you might want to join us on May 5th. You will be getting information and links from the State League in the next week.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Cindy, I should have said that.
That's okay. I'm going to have to leave. We have somebody picking up some furniture. Thanks, everybody. Good meeting.
Thanks, Cindy, for being here. Cindy's out of town working. Okay, do we have anything else that anybody needs to say, wants to say? It's been a great meeting. Appreciate everybody being here. be sure to join us in all these activities.
Well, they've all been such good programs, Mary. I really
Thanks, Barb.
enjoyed,
We've had some wonderful speakers. And if you weren't able to go to that April panel, please look at that recording, because those three women are, you know, we chose them as a committee, and we chose some outstanding people. Marlene Helm, from the acting superintendent of Fayette County. Rochelle Brown, who is a physician, and she's with United Healthcare, but she talked about health advocacy, and she was a wonderful speaker. And then our business component was Beth Davison from the Kentucky Chamber Workforce. And I mean, she is trying to advocate for women and everybody in the workforce, or trying to get into the workforce. But they were just wonderful speakers and had so much information. Really wonderful. So yeah.
So I was just putting up on the screen. This is where you can find it on our website under programs. Go to community forums. Everything is here, and you just click on this button. You can watch the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
It was really fabulous. I was,
Thank
all
you.
these women have dedicated their lives to what they were talking about, and they really care, and they're really wonderful people.
It was a great program. Okay, everybody.
all
Have a
right.
good rest of your weekend, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.